Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, classic slash non-classic. This is episode number 422 and Doubleshot number 342. I have one Marvel trade and one trade from IDW. Yeah, first one a little while I reviewed. I think the last one I reviewed from IDW was that crossover between Star Trek and Planet of the Apes. That was the last one I did. But I'll get to the IDW one soon, which one it is. But first, we have the trade from Marvel. It's Avengers 4. Yep. This contains the 5-issue miniseries, basically Avengers Volume 6. Yeah, 6. 1.1 to 5.1, written by Mark Waid. And artwork by Barry Kitsu does all 5 issues, with Mark Bagley on issue 5.1. Mark Bagley, Sean Izaki, and Rose Steen. Yeah. The pretty much this 5-issue miniseries pretty much takes place between Avengers Volume 1, issue 16, and issue 17. Though the first issue kind of takes place toward the end of that very issue, and kind of fills that little gap between those two issues. Also, the cover is very Jack Kirby at the banner for Avengers. Yeah, this is very Jack Kirby-esque, and Barry Kitson does a great job recreating the classic Jack Kirby art style from the 1960s. Stan Lee, when he originally did the title, he only did it for the first 37 issues before handing out to Roy Thomas, who did it up until issue 104. Kirby, in the meantime, he did it up until, let me look it up here. I have to look it up here. How far did he do it to for this book? I don't think he did it for too long, did he? No, he just did the first 8 issues, and he did issues 14 to 17. Yeah, that's basically what he did. So he didn't do this, but he didn't do the original Avengers book for too long per se. He wasn't, let's say, the long-term artist for the book. He basically, because this was one of the many books he was doing back in the 60s. The longest book he did as artist was Fantastic Four, a book basically him and Stan Lee basically have had the record for the longest creative team for a book, basically, which was 100 issues. That record was held until Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley themselves broke it in the 2000s with Ultimate Spider-Man by doing 113 issues in a row. And Mark Bagley is one of the artists on here. Now, each issue basically is the Avengers face off against various foes. Like they have the Frightful Four in here, which is the original lineup from their original debut appearance back in, I think it's Fantastic Four number 11, I believe it is. Have to look it up here. Oh, also as I point out though, when the thing opens up, the original founding members are actually fighting the original Masters of Evil. Yeah, these guys are the original Masters of Evil, which these are the Mysterious Melter, the Enchantress, the Black Knight, the Executioner. Well, this is most of them anyways. There's actually a couple more that are not pictured here. And that's Baron Zemo and there was one other one. Yeah, Baron Zemo and Radioactive Man. They were also founding members of the Masters of Evil, and from looking at them, pretty much they're comprised of 3 Iron Man villains, 2 Thor villains, and a Captain America villain. There's no enemies of Giant Man or Wasp part of the group, and heck, there's no Hulk villain. The Executioner is kind of basically considered a partially also Hulk villain, so mainly he's just a Thor villain. Yeah. Also, during the 60s, this is what Hank Pym's Alpha looked like when he was Giant Man. He was Giant Man to issue 28 of the series. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, here's the original Frightful Four. Basically, when they were seen back in Fantastic Four number 38, which the original members are the Trapster, the Wizard, Medusa, and the Sandman. This is basically during a period of time when Medusa was suffering through amnesia before she found out she was actually, well, an Inhuman. Not only that, but also pretty much the King Black Bolt's girlfriend, later his wife. And here's something quite weird about Black Bolt and Medusa. They're cousins. No, seriously, they're cousins, and they get married and they have a kid together. Yep. Some of you are probably wondering, who the heck is the Wizard and the Trapster? People know who Sandman is because he's a Spider-Man villain. But as for why he's a member of the 504, shared universe. And plus, basically, also they've had at one point Electro and Hydro Man, basically also members of the 504. So basically, the 504 tend to be a mix between Fantastic Four villains and Spider-Man villains. That's just the way it's always been. It's been that way since the 60s because Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created this group. The Wizard and the Trapster have generally been part of every single lineup of the 504. The Trapster himself, I think he missed one lineup, but generally the Wizard has generally been the leader of the 504. Heck, there was at one point, there was a 505 where they added his daughter. Her name was Cole. They added her briefly part of the group as well. But generally put, over the years, a lot of the time, it was mainly comprised of, well, mostly Fantastic Four villains and Spider-Man villains. On an occasion, they might have other people's villains. Like, at one point, there was a two-part Amazing Spider-Man where Spider-Man teamed up with the Submariner to take on the 504, and the fourth member was actually an enemy of his who actually killed his wife. Yeah. On their wedding day. No, seriously, it was like right after they officially got married. Now, officially, the Atlantean law recognizes that he married Lady Dorma, but the woman he married was not actually her. It was actually his enemy posing as her, while basically she killed his actual wife. Yep. But, yeah. Now, Sandman has basically popped up through various different teams over the years. Basically, he's noteworthy member of the 504, but he's also been a founding member not only of this team, but also the Sinister Six from Amazing Spider-Man. Yep. And also, we also have a character who very rarely shows up in an Avengers comic anymore, or at least any comic. Edwin Jarvis, the Butler. Yep. One of his very few appearances that he's made. Because I'm not sure exactly why this is. Currently, he's a supporting character in the Unbeatable Wasp series. Yeah. And that's what he was doing before that. He was briefly a recurring character in all new, all different Avengers before he got moved over to that title. And the thing was, prior to that, it's like, I would say the last time he was officially part of any major storyline was back during Secret Invasion. It's like they just don't care to use this character at all. Nope. And Avengers also get a chance during this period of time to fight a character who fought the X-Men briefly. Yeah. A character who fought the X-Men. Now, who is this character? Let's see if I can see him here. He is the Stranger. Yep. They fight the Stranger. A character who, like this says here, back in X-Men number 11. Thank you, editors, for putting that there because, well, otherwise people have no idea where he was basically first showed up. That's basically his first appearance. And that was also, and when he saw my X-Men retrospective, I haven't done it in a little while. That was actually the end of the first major Brotherhood storyline. Because at that point, the Brotherhood of Mutant disappeared. And it was after this particular storyline, after this issue, that's when Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch left the Brotherhood of Mutant and joined the Avengers right after that. And we sort of have the first, well, kind of first official meeting between this lamp Avengers and the X-Men. And the X-Men are in their classic blue and gold costumes, designed by the late Jack Kirby himself. He pretty much designed everybody's costume that appears in basically Marvel Comics. Like any major character who made a debut in the 1960s, Jack Kirby had a hand basically, a lot of them basically, he had a hand in creation of the costume. I should point out though, Jack Kirby also has unofficial credit for creating Daredevil because he created the Billy Club. And yet, still to this day, Marvel will never give Jack Kirby that credit. Even though he did create the Billy Club. Yep. Yep. And I love these covers. These are basically kind of like minor homages basically to how covers were depicted back in the 60s. Of course, I didn't live back in the 60s. I just knew these covers because I read them. Because I read the comics. in the past 13 years. That's all I know about these. We also get to see another Fantastic Four villain, the Mad Thinker. Yep, a character who also very rarely shows up anymore. And also, let's see if I could see him here. We also get a brief cameo by Daredevil and Spider-Man. Yep. Can't be an Avengers comic without Spider-Man showing up. Yep. And there's also this new character. Her name is Cassandra. Let's see if I can find her name here. Okay, it's Cresta. Yeah, Cresta something. I have to look up her name here. It's mentioned that she's not a mutant. They don't necessarily say what she is. No, she's human, yes, but as for what she is, nobody knows. Nope. Yeah. And this is something, though. Cap punching the stranger. Yeah, that's something you don't see. Him punching a guy that hardly anybody ever punched back in the 60s. It's so funny. Absolutely hilarious. Yeah. There's also this brief period of time throughout the miniseries, but halfway through, but most of this basically the public is not exactly trusting this team very much because they didn't like the fact that, well, we have a new lineup, fine, but they say, oh yeah, these guys are not the Avengers because, well, 3 of whom are actually former criminals. Well, Hawkeye basically made mistakes and he was pardoned for it. As for Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, yeah, they were terrorists and of course they were pawns. Of course, later on they get a chance to sort of make up for what they did. We also get appearance by more Spider-Man villains, the Enforcers. My friend Edgar does not like these characters at all. These are the original lineup. We have Fancy Dan. He's the guy with the lasso. We also have Montana. He's the guy with the mustache, and the big guy, that's Roland Brock. I think his name is. That is Ox. These are the original Enforcers. When they made a debut back in the 60s, they were originally led by a character known as the Big Man, who was really Frederick Frostwell. They did use that identity for. They used that code name for Tombstone for some reason. Because in this particular Spider-Man cartoon, because apparently Kingpin was tied up with Spider-Man for some reason. Yet people forget that he started as a Spider-Man villain because, well, he popped up in Daredevil. This cover right here, this issue 4, I think it's basically a minor homage. I think it's a homage to a Fantastic Four cover. We have the Fantastic Four fighting the Fantastic Four. This is a great cover. Yeah, there's plenty of good gags here, which is funny. Like here's something really funny. Basically, let's see if I can find the page here. We have Jarvis basically ironing Hawkeye's costume, and to pay back for all the dumb things that he wanted him to do, like pack his net arrows, fill up his gas arrows, stuff like that. He puts itch powder on his costume. I'm like, that is so funny. That is such a good way to get back at the guy. Yeah. So, yeah, and there's also reference to another classic. I'm trying to remember. I think this Strange Tales 114. I know Lee wrote the issue. I don't think. Let's see. I think Kirby did the artwork for that one. I think he did. Yeah, it's Strange Tales 14, an old enemy of a character who appeared in a Human Torch story, a guy called the Acrobat. This is the guy right here. The only reason why I know it's not a Doctor Strange story because they talk about a time this guy posed as Captain America. I know that couldn't have been a Doctor Strange story because, well, because Captain America never appeared in the Strange Tales stories. Damn thing. Anyways, but yeah, this miniseries is just pure awesomeness. Also, Hydro Man. Yep. Hydro, yeah, that's Hydro Man. I'm like, okay, oh yeah, that's actually Sandman, who was later turned to glass. I thought that was Hydro Man. Yeah, and this Cresta. She basically became a she basically got a code name called Avenger X. Yeah, and if you look at this page, if you've ever read any of the Jack Kirby issues done by any comic that came in the '60s and had this style of basically set up, basically you have the credits here on the bottom, you have the banners here on top. Yeah, these are comics that were done back in the '60s. Yep. But this miniseries is just pure awesomeness at its finest. The character Avenger X does come back for a couple issues after this in the regular Avenger issues, where she appears just for 2 issues and that's it. I love the fact that writers, basically some of the current writers from Marvel, are actually fans of stuff like this. I gotta praise Mark Waid for doing a great job with the story. Barry Kitts himself did a great job with the artwork, basically emulating, basically having the spirit of Jack Kirby draw these issues. Yeah, it's like he was possessed by Jack Kirby because he's so Jack Kirby-esque. Though a lot of people have copied a lot of artists have copied Jack Kirby's art style. So I'm gonna give this book a 10 out of 10. This book is just purely amazing. My friend, the Masked Panther, he loves these issues as well because they feel like classic retro stories, basically retold in modern day. But if these came on the '60s, small problem. They have plasma TVs in here, and they didn't have plasma TVs in the '60s. They had TVs in the '60s, but they were a lot different. I've seen what TVs look like back in the '60s. I didn't live in the '60s, but yeah, 10 out of 10, amazing. All right, next up is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Universe, Volume 1, and this contains the first 5 issues of the series. This series started just last year. Currently, the most recent issue that came out was issue 13. Now, there's about 3 different stories in here. The first story is done by, which is also the name of this trade, which is known as The War to Come. That's written by Paul Eller and artwork by Damien Kurzato, I think it's the pronounce the person's name. Inside Out, which is one of the 2 stories. I think it's one story. The story is done by Kevin Eastman. He's one of the co-creators of the Turtles. Bobby Curnow and Tom Waltz, who also does the script for the thing. And of course, the artwork is done by Kevin Eastman. Urban Legends is done by Chris Mowry, and artwork by Mike Dellis. I think it's pronounced, yes. The main story in here is just the Turtles infiltrating TCRI. And okay, Baxter Tuckman's in here as well. I don't know exactly why they infiltrated just to save April for some reason. And also we had the first in-comic appearance, in-universe appearance, or I should say, first ever comic appearance outside of the 2003 cartoon of Agent Bishop. If anybody ever watched the 2003 cartoon for Ninja Turtles, they know this character very well. This paranoid government agent who thinks that the Turtles basically are a threat to humanity because they're mutants. Yeah, very much paranoia. And he's written to be a very hated character, but I enjoy him. I think he's a great character because even though he's paranoid, but in here he's a lot more paranoid than he was in the 2003 cartoon. Yeah, he even has a detective who he's basically working with arrested for attempting to stop one of his people from shooting April. Yeah, that's how stupid it is. I mean, come on. She was preventing an unarmed woman from being shot, and she got grazed in the arm. Instead of, basically just telling her just to calm down, they arrest her on the spot. And of course, they let her go. Let's turn this over. Excuse me. But that story is great in here. Inside Out, basically, with artwork by Kevin Eastman, who's one of the co-creators of the Turtles. Now, the main story, that takes a good majority of this trade. Now, the Inside Out, that's done by Kevin Eastman. This is all Kevin Eastman artwork. Yeah, this is Kevin Eastman's artwork. Basically, when I look at this artwork, it kind of reminds me of now I've read some of the early TMNT issues. That's the artwork I look at. Now, the artwork in here, the cover is done by Freddie Williams. He does the actual covers for these issues. This is Damien Cordado, I think it's pronounced. Yeah, this is his artwork. And this is the artwork that would take a majority of the series, as far as I can tell. Yeah. The last issue, the last story, Urban Legends, which is about now Inside Out is a solo story for Leo, and the second one, Urban Legends, which is done by Chris Mowry, that's basically a story focused on Leatherhead, and this artwork is done by Mike Dellins. This is actually really good artwork. Yeah, I gotta praise him for that. But yeah, I also gotta mention this. There is a cover in here done by both creators of the Turtles, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, one of the variant covers for this series. Yeah, look at this cover. If anybody have ever seen the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1, they would know this is basically the combination of Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird because they worked on this comic for years. Yeah. This is Freddie Williams II. This cover is done by Ben Bishop, which I think is the I think this is actually one of the artists for the main book, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. This spread cover is all Kevin Eastman. Yeah. Awesome cover. Oh, Bebop and Rocksteady are actually in the main universe comic, and they had a mini series which was okay, but not all that good. But this particular, the way some of these characters, the way they appear on here, it kind of reminds me of the I'm trying to remember. I think it reminds me of the 2003 cartoon, especially seeing these guys here, the four guards, who actually in that cartoon worked for the so-called Rail Shredder, with a demon. Here's the guy who did the last story, Damien Cordo. We also have Antonio Fuzzo, who does one of the variant covers. Let's see. Another Freddie Williams cover. Another Damien Cordell cover. Yeah, and that character here, she's a scorpion. I think her name is Tobide, I think her name is. Yeah, she kills up a guard for no reason. More Freddie Williams. This cover is done by Austin Graham Kurangara. I think that's how you pronounce the person's name. Yeah. More card and more Freddie Williams. That's Freddie Williams. That's Cordo. Eddie Nunez. This artwork is very reminiscent, basically, of the Turtles look in the 2003 cartoon. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Another Kevin Eastman cover. Yeah, I love Kevin Eastman covers. They look really amazing. Ian Chase Nicholas. That's who does this cover. Dan Duncan. This art style basically thinks this is kind of similar to how the 2012 Turtles are. Let's see. Tess Fowler. That's who does this cover. Sandra Shaw. I think that's the last cover. No, wait, there's one more. Joanne Christmas. I think the main story is great. The Inside Out one is okay. I have nothing against Kevin Eastman. The writing is great. It's just that the story is just okay. The Leatherhead story I think is really good. I'm gonna give this trade a 9 out of 10. The first story is great. Second story is okay. Third story is actually pretty good. Okay. So that's it for this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode, which will be episode 423. And that will be a single shot because I only have like one other trade I have to review. Okay. But until then, I will see you there. Bye.